So here I have lovely GCF again. GCF is the first starting point. So anytime I say what's the first step of factoring, you guys get to yell GCF.
GCF.
So I take a look at number 1 here. What number comes out of both of these? 3. Is there a letter in common? No. So then I just have to say 3 times what is 3x? X. And 3 times what is 6y? And that's my answer. So I look first for a number that's in common. Then I look for other things in common, such as letters. So like number 2 is a little even trickier because we've never thrown in some loss. So let's do that now. Is there a number in common between 3 and 2? Okay, there's no number, right? So now let's look at the first letter, X. Do I have an X in both? What is the smallest exponent on the X? Okay, so I'm going to write X to the first. Do I have a Y in both? What is the smallest exponent on the Y? Okay. Now, since I only pulled out the X and the Y, what number is still there? 3. How many? I have one X here. How many X's do I need altogether? 2. So how many more do I need? So I'm going to write X to the first. Do you have to write that little 1? No, you don't have to. But some people like to because then they can add them together. 1 plus 1 is 2. I have 3y. How many do I need for this one? 3. So do I need any more y? No. Okay. Minus. Do I need to write the 2? I need to write the 2. How many more x's do I need? None. How many more y's do I need? 2. And that's it. So that was a tricky one. That's one of those ones that's really more challenging. But raise your hand if you actually got that one. You just didn't take the stage. Okay, that makes sense to me. Like I said, that's the most challenging, and 4 of you got it. Okay? And as we keep working with it, it'll be a little easier. Ooh, I don't like number 3. Why don't I like number 3? Yeah, my highest exponent is last. I don't like that. So I'm going to put it in what's called standard form. Highest exponent to the lowest exponent. So 8x to the 4th minus 3x cubed. What? Oh, 2, yes. I don't know how I'm getting some of those numbers. All right. What number goes into 8 and 2? 2. Is there an x in both? What is the smallest exponent on the x? 2 times what is 8? How many more x's do I need? 2 times what is 2? How many more x's do I need? None. You have to write that minus 1 at the end. Because if I redistribute it and I don't have that minus 1, I only get this first term. I will never get that second term if I don't put that minus 1. Does that make sense? Okay. And Spencer, yesterday, that's where I talked through the entire period. What number comes out of everything, what letters in common, what's the smallest exponent, and so on. Okay? Are there any questions on GCF again today? Tomorrow we're going to do some problems again with it, so you should feel a little bit more comfortable. But at this time, turn back to the front of your spiral notebook. You can just leave the packet out. So what we just said was that a here is the number that's in front of the x squared. So when we're talking about a is 1, we're talking about there's no number in front of this x squared. That's what this means. Okay? So for Mr. Ryan students, that's what we're talking about right here. No number in front of the x squared. So here's what you actually have to ask yourself. What two things multiply to the last number, but add to the middle number? So let me repeat that so you can write that in your own words. What two things multiply to the last number, but add to the middle number? Make sure you write that down somewhere. What two things multiply to the last number, but add to the middle number? The reason you're writing that down is I'm going to say that over and over and over, and probably in about 4 weeks somebody will say, well, how do I do that? And I can say, turn back there, you can read yourself your notes. So what two numbers multiply to the last number, but add to that middle number? 2 and 5. Okay. What kind of 2 and 5? A positive, a negative, mixed? Both positive, right? Okay, you have to know your positive and negative. If you're not good with positive and negative, there's a few of us that are, you have a calculator. So here's what we do. We make 2 sets of parentheses. And since A is 1, we get to write X and X. And Lauren said positive 2 and positive 5. That's your answer. Now how can I check to see that Lauren is right? I don't believe you, Lauren. You must be wrong. We could FOIL it. That's one way. And we practiced FOIL yesterday for that specific reason. What other way do we have that we learned yesterday? You could graph them both in the calculator. Okay? So you choose. You could factor it. You could FOIL it, or you could actually put it in the graphing calculator. Let's FOIL that together. Let's see if she's right. So FOIL the x plus 2 and x plus 5 together. Let's review that FOILing a little bit. So, when you FOILed it, did it work?
It worked.
It worked. Okay, and for those of you that forgot how to FOIL, you turn back a page to look and saw x times x is x squared, x times 5 is 5x, 2 plus x is 2x, and 2 times 5 is 10, and you added your middle terms together. All right. Let's try this one. Now the process is exactly the same. Oops. There we go. So again, I'm going to make 2 sets of parentheses. I'm going to start them both with x. But now I have to ask myself, what times what is 30, but adds to negative 11? Austin. Negative 5 and 6 make 1. I'm picky. That's right. That is right. Negative 5 and negative 6. Now, if this was a quiz question and you wrote positive and positive, do you even think you're getting partial credit? No, there's nothing really here, so you really have to check your numbers. Okay? All right. Try that one for me on your own. What does my youngest person say is the answer? Perfect. Now I have a question. Anybody have x minus 4, x minus 7? Does it matter what order that's in? No. They both have minus signs, so it does not matter. Very good. Let's do this. Here's 3 problems. Write them down. Write the answers beside them. All right, let's go ahead and go over number 4 and just start number 5 to make sure we're on the right path. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and put my parentheses for number 4. And since A is 1, A is that number in front of the x squared, I get to write x and x. Okay. And to let you were the last one to answer, so you get to point to a group this time. This group, let's go with Hemi. Hemi, what did you get for this one, number 4? 4 and negative 3. Okay, so 4 and negative 3 do make negative 12.
Yeah, but then
Okay. So it doesn't make that middle. So 4 and 3 aren't going to work. What other things multiply to 12? 2 and 6 do, right? And if I use negative 2 and positive 6, it does work to that. So sometimes you actually do have to list out the factors. The first ones that pop in your head don't always work. Trust me, they don't. About 100 times it doesn't work. Okay, so what's the GCF on number 5? Since I always have to start with GCF, the first step is GCF. What number is it here? So I'm going to pull the 2 up. 2 times what is 2x squared? Yell it out. Good. 2 times what is 8x? Good. 2 times what is 24? All right. See if you can factor this stuff inside the parentheses now. Forget about the 2 right this second. And just see what times what is negative 12 but adds to negative 8. Check with your group. Make sure everybody agrees. All right. Hemi, point to a group. Lovely. Let's go with Antonio. What 2 numbers did you use here? 2 and negative 6? Positive 2 and negative 6? Now, remember how I said forget about the 2? All you have to do is rewrite the 2 in front. And this is your final answer. So if there is a GCF, we have to start there. We have to. And this is a problem I would star because on your homework you have several of those, and I don't want that to be confusing. All right, do number 6 if you haven't already. One of those things. Or it's like, wait, I don't get it. All right. Let's actually go with Michaela. Michaela, what'd you get? Good. Okay. Any questions? Raise your hand if you got that one. Good. Now, you know what I do sometimes if I don't know the factors? I start with 1 and 18. And then I ask myself, does 2 go into it? Yeah, 2 and 9. Does 3 go into 18? 3 and 6. Does 4? 5? And then I'm already up to the number 6, so I'm done. These are all the factors of it. And that's all I do to list the factors that quickly. Okay? All right, let's try this one. X squared minus 9. Now, so we're asking ourselves, what 2 things multiply to negative 9, right? But add to what? What's that middle term? 0. So what 2 things multiply to negative 9, but add to 0? 3 and 3 makes 6. 3 and negative 3. So in this case, it would be x minus 3, x plus 3. That makes sense? Okay. And this is actually called the difference of perfect squares. X squared is a perfect square, and 9 is a perfect square because 3 and 3 make 9. All right, so let's skip to number 11. X squared plus 9. See if you can discuss with your group and come up with the answer there. are good at discussing. Some groups are staring off into space. Gotta talk.
Is it possible that it could be not possible?
It is. Okay, explain, Spencer. Spencer, you are perfectly right. And actually, I'm going to write that. Not possible. Okay, can you explain? Because you're right. Okay, go ahead. Yeah. 3 and 3 make 9, but add to 6. Negative 3 and negative 3 make 9, but add to 6. Or negative 6, right? So there's nothing I can do to get that positive. How about this? Let's do number 9, and we'll stop there. So, pull out the GCF. I'm left with x squared plus 7x plus 10. I leave the 2 out front, and it would be x plus 2, x plus 5. Okay? Now, on this one, you actually can get partial credit. If you show that GCF, you've got partial credit. Full credit if you've got the answer. That make sense? All right. Take your lovely packet at this time. Turn to page 3 and do 2 to 26 even.